Martin from the Philippines. We're here in Real Talk Lifeline. So good afternoon. It's around noontime today. People watching the live or the replay. Here in the Philippines, we say magandang tanghali because it's lunchtime. It's actually not yet afternoon, hapon, like that. So good lunchtime to you guys. The topic for today and this live is going to be a little hard for me. So the topic for today is constantly comparing. Now, why is it going to be hard? This is a very personal sharing. Now, Real Talk Lifeline has been about real, raw, and authentic conversations from the start until now. So this is also partly why I'm doing this live about constantly comparing. For me, those who could relate watching the live or the replay, you can comment down below, #relate if you can, right? This one for me is something I'm actually going through at the moment, and some of you might find it insightful. So why am I doing it? Just like the live previously, this is more for self-awareness for myself. So one thing I learned is we can't change what we're not aware of. That's one thing I'm learning from my personal development and mentors. So topic of the day, constantly comparing. Why do we do this? In particular, I'm going through this. So this is a bit of a hard live for me to do. Constantly comparing. Part of the reason why we do this and what I'm learning, I'll just give 3 quick points on this one. The first one, constantly comparing, it goes down to our ego. So many people say this. Like, what's this ego thing? Like, I'm comparing with other people. It's very psychology based, our ego. So constantly comparing is, I'm like this. So there's another person doing that. Hey, I do a live. Why does this other person get more likes or loves? How come more people are watching this other person? So that's part of constantly comparing. It could also be in our workplace. It could be even down to family, personal, our friends. Like, hey, why are friends doing this but not for me, something like that. Constantly comparing. So ego, that's one reason, the psychology of it. So I'll go another layer deeper because for me, a lot of people just said, oh, it's ego. It's like this. I didn't fully understand what the hell does ego mean. So number 2, there's actually science behind it to back it up. Hard science. So why do we do constantly compare to other people? Second science reason is mirror neurons. So I learned this from a mentor also in my later years, just some years ago. Mirror neurons, to make it more relatable to other people, is for those who drive a car, have you ever experienced you're just driving at your own pace? Suddenly a fast car goes next to you, and then you start to match that person's speed. Because like, oh, maybe this person might go faster than me. Oh, they can't beat me. And then you reach a hump or a turn or whatever, and then you suddenly, because you were copying the speed or the pace of the other person, you fly over the hump, you lose control over your own flow, like that. So mirror neurons is a very real scientific thing. So it's we copy or mirror other people's actions, feelings, even their motions, and it's science based, in other words. So that's one reason. Another reason why we constantly compare with others. So the third reason, if you want to go a layer deeper even, and for me this was actually the simplest, ironically, the simplest reason that made me understand why do we constantly compare ourselves with others. The third reason, I learned this from T. Harv Eker. So this is back in 2018, one of my mentors I look up to. It's simply because it's a survival mechanism. So constantly comparing. Why do we do that? It's actually for our survival. So linking the other reasons above, they all connect. For example, give a real extreme scenario. We as humans, we look to our surroundings. So we get feedback, we ping. So let's say right now I'm here, I'm on a second floor in a house. Suddenly people all around are running and they're going to the ground floor or they're seeking shelter and they're acting like in panic, something's going on. So that survival mechanism will kick in. I don't know if there's an earthquake going on. I don't know if there's suddenly a natural disaster, there's an emergency, something like that. So our survival mechanism kicks in. Because if I don't constantly compare to my environment and I don't get that feedback, I could die. In other words, very simply. So when they say survival mechanism, as T. Harv Eker pointed out and I learned from my mentor, it's a real thing. It's hardwired into our DNA, in other words. So that goes to the topic of constantly comparing. Now, moving forward, for those watching the live, for those who feel like, well, I want a solution. Like, how do I move forward? How do I not constantly compare? What do I do? So you're in luck. I'll give at least one solution, which I'm going to do right now. So whether there's one person watching the live, and I appreciate your support, there were 2 people, maybe a lot, or maybe even none, like 0. One thing that will help me stop constantly comparing is something my mentor taught me. So this line gave me a lot of peace. So he said, if you're tripping out over small shit, you need bigger shit to trip out over, son. Thank you for the support. I saw that. I saw the emoji pop up. Say, oh, Richie pala. So thank you for the support. So when we go out of that mode of constantly comparing, which is, some people will say that's survival or it's competitive, that frame, right? Where we're coming from. Another way to shift, if you want to think on a higher level, is to go to a collaborative frame. So for example, if I'm comparing with someone, a peer, someone, anyone else, I can look to that person as inspiration. Hey, this person's putting himself out. I want to do that too. I want to be happy for that other person. If he gets more likes, more loves, more reacts, more engagement, why can't I choose to be happy for him instead? So that's a different paradigm higher. That's more of collaborative than a lower paradigm, competitive, which is still very much survival based, fear based, etc. like that. So the last thing I would share is, it could be as real simple. People will say, oh, you're thinking high level like that. If I want to get out of constantly comparing, I'll think of bigger shit. It doesn't mean necessarily handling the estate of your family. There's a nuclear bomb coming or whatever. It doesn't mean that. All it means is, what matters to you right now that I can focus on. And for those, I'll give my personal example. What I'm going to do right after this, I had to set it up, is I'm going to lift some weights. Because I'd rather be doing that than tripping out over comparing myself with someone. Now people will say, you're at home, saan yung gym? Where are you going to go? How are you going to train? Dude, do it in your motherfucking bedroom, which is what I'm going to do right now. So there's no excuse. I'm going to do that. And for me, the way I break out of constantly comparing is, someone asked me this back in grade school or high school, one of my batchmates. He was asking, how many reps do you do? And he's the only person who said it this way. He said, he didn't ask me how many reps I did. He said, do you do it until failure? And that really hit me, because no one else ever said it or asked me that way. And I just kept quiet because I knew what he meant. So you're going to do it until your arms fall off, until you collapse, or until you almost fucking kill yourself. And I mean that in a really good way. So people watching the live or the replay, if you're still stuck in that constantly comparing mindset, frame, whatever, like you can't get out of it, you're stuck, comment deep dive down below if you want to get unstuck with that. Let's help each other. We could do it one-on-one, do a clarity call, just help each other and support each other that way. Thank you. I love you. and I will see you next time. Let's lift some weights!